There's a natural mystic blowing through the air. Hello and welcome to my review of Stephen King's It, the novel. This is going to be chapter 15 entitled Smoke Hole. And this chapter took us back to the past. Again, not surprising, but we got a little bit of origin in this chapter, which was cool. Okay, so in this chapter, we start in the present, we go back to the past. Nothing really unique there, but this chapter is when we finally get a glimpse into maybe what it is, and maybe where it came from, and that kind of thing. So we do find out that they found the body of the child 2 days later in the Barrens. I did mention that last chapter, the child whose body that fell out of the drain. They did find that, and then we also learn at some point that about a month after these events is when they stood together and joined hands and made a promise in the creek, or the stream, or whatever it was. So we're getting sort of close to that, because we knew that happened in 1958, but we find out it happened pretty soon after that. So we go back, and they're working on their clubhouse in this episode, and they're all sort of building it up together, and it's done. Actually, the clubhouse is just done, and they start talking about the ceremony that apparently the Native Americans did, where they all sit around in a circle, and they have this ventilation at the top, but they're all sitting together in this space, and there's lots of smoke blowing, and they have sort of visions when this happens. And at first, the kids' reaction is understandable. They're kind of thinking to themselves, we need to have someone stay up top and make sure that things don't go badly. And they end up drawing matches to see who's going to do it. Before that, we have the scene with Beverly where she kind of stands up for herself and combats this sort of idea that since she's the girl, she needs to be the one to stand guard and she shouldn't be the one risking as much. I like this scene a lot. Beverly standing up for herself, and she really does want to be part of the group. I really like that. Also, speaking of group dynamics, they learn that it should be 7. We don't know why, but when Beverly is fighting with the rest of them, they're thinking, we can't have anyone leave, because if it's not 7, we can't win, which is sort of what Pennywise says in the previous chapter. So anyway, the interesting thing that happens is they all draw these matches. And what you do when you draw matches, if you don't know, is one person strikes the match, and then the sticks are pointed the other way out, and each person's got to draw a match, and the person who draws the burnt one is it, basically. It. And all of them draw matches, and none of them are burnt. And Bev says, I did burn one of them, but now none of them are. It's almost like it's meant to be for them. They say they know that it is a terrible thing, but this is not the same source. It shows them visions and evil things, but they know that whatever this is that's guiding them, that's making it so they're, quote, supposed to do it, is not the same thing, and it's a force for benevolence. So they all end up going down into this smoke hole. And it's kind of funny that they got to that decision through that process. I think it's funny that Stephen King acknowledged how dumb this idea was and why they still did it anyway. I'm glad they didn't just all do it, because then I would have had all these complaints like, why did they all do this? They could have done this differently. So that was nice. They all go down into this hole, and long story short, first thing that happens is it seems to get really big down there. It's a little bitty thing in their clubhouse that they finish, but it seems really big down there for some reason, and they start having these visions. But a lot of them keep leaving first. And the only two down there are Mikey and Richie. And Mikey and Richie have this vision where they go way back into the past. It says maybe even 1,000,000 years. And they see all these animals stampeding away from the forest. And they see this terrible thing of flame coming down from the sky. And it's shooting all these things everywhere, and it touches down, and this pillar of fire comes up, and all these animals are charging, and it's this hellish scene. And they come back and they say, that was it coming to Earth. And Mikey and Richie say it wasn't really a spaceship. It was like it came from outside of everything. And it was just arriving here in the spaceship. They didn't really know how to explain it. So that could lend some credence to the idea that it is an alien, or maybe something else, maybe some sort of supernatural being. I don't really know at this point what it could be, but it sounds like that's what they're going with, which would be interesting, because I like when they combine science fiction with scary things. That works really well for some popular franchises right now. Again, I don't want to give anything away from other franchises, but this is pretty similar to something else that I like to watch, even though I'm reading this and not watching it. So, that was cool. That scene was pretty scary. It was pretty crazy. And the chapter ends with Bev basically saying, can we even beat that thing? And that's the end. And I really like that. It was a crazy, very compact, boom, boom, boom type chapter. And I liked it. I didn't even need to read it twice. Something else we find out is that Richie's eyes were burning because he was recalling the smoke hole incident. It's interesting because Richie realizes that the reason they don't remember all these things at once is because if they were to remember everything at the same time, it would be so overwhelming that they wouldn't be able to handle it. But Richie jumps up from the table and he says, oh my god, the smoke hole! And Mike's just sort of sitting there in amusement as he realizes what Richie is remembering, which he presumably remembered all the time, because he lived in Derry and he was not far away. I can't really think of anything else to say about it except for the big reveal was that this thing came from beyond the stars, and we're trying to figure out what it is. So I'll be curious to know what happens next. That's really all I have to say, unless I check my notes and I see something else before I finish this. But if that's the case, or if that's not the case, then I will see you guys next time. Thank you very much for watching this video, and I look forward to Chapter 16 of Stephen King's It. Talk to y'all later. Bye-bye.